If you're interested in the lore of the Warhammer games, one of the best things you can do is pick up one of the role-playing books. These books are packed with info, so you can really immerse yourself in the setting and feel like you're part of the story when playing one of the games. For someone not interested in actually playing a role-playing game, they're still a great resource, as the info about the setting is clearly laid out rather than buried in Black Library novels. Currently, all the Warhammer role-playing games are managed by Cubicle 7 Games, who've taken pretty good care of the setting since 2006. There are 4 lines they're currently working on: Warhammer Fantasy, set in the Old World; Soulbound, set in the Age of Sigmar; Wrath and Glory, set in the 40k universe; and an upcoming Imperium Maledictum, which is, as Abna describes, domestic 40k. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay was originally printed by Games Workshop in 1986 to go along with the wargame. Adventures are typically set in the Empire, which, when compared to the classic D&D settings, can only be described as grim. The core book is packed with info on the history of the Empire, the politics, the geography, and so on. It also has those little details you'd need to know if you were living in the Empire: the names of the months, the days of the week, holidays, goings on at market, traveling the roads, stuff like that. Along with all of those things that lurk on the edges of the Empire, like beastmen and goblins, or hide in the rot within the Empire, like the cults of change or the Skaven. Of particular interest is the Enemy Within campaign, a series of linked adventures commonly considered to be one of the best RPG campaigns ever printed. This classic originally came out in the late 80s, and Cubicle 7 recently released a revised and updated version. Basically, they took 20 years of feedback and improved one of the classic greats. This adventure spans the length and breadth of the Empire, with your heroes fighting all sorts of enemies. Next up, we have Soulbound. To say Age of Sigmar had a rocky start is a bit of an understatement. Fans were not happy to leave decades of the old world behind for this fresh setting. That was nearly 8 years ago though, and since then the story and background has developed into a really rich setting. This is epic fantasy, with gods battling over the 8 realms. It's perfect for giant armies, but the role-playing game Soulbound really shows the setting from a different lens. Your heroes in this game will be paragons, essentially fantasy superheroes, but in their adventures they're likely to deal with the average, everyday people that you will find in the realms. The core book takes you through the history of this setting and breaks down the 8 realms. It also goes into a little bit more detail on the realm of fire, and we learn how mortal inhabitants live in this burning realm. Cubicle 7 has also produced a Champions of Death and a Champions of Destruction book, letting you play heroes from those factions instead. So it's a good way to get a little bit more of an insight on the motivations of these kind of antagonists. Of particular interest for me are the setting books. Here we have Era of the Beast, a book that includes all the recent developments in the greater story, like Morathi's play for godhood. It also goes into detail about Ghur, the realm of beasts. If you're a Warcry or Underworlds fan, you'll have heard of the Gnarlwood, which is a location in this realm. This book has all the detail on where your warbands are and the lands they would have had to pass through to get there. It's a great resource if you want to add some depth to your warband's backstory. Next to it, we have the book on Ulfenkarn. This book isn't out yet, but I'm very much looking forward to it. Ulfenkarn is the city from Cursed City. It's a city in the realm of death, run by Radakur the Wolf, a fearsome vampire lord. Moving over to the 40k universe, we have Wrath and Glory. Trying to cover everything in 40k is a big task, but this book gives it a shot. Your heroes can be anything from Imperial Guardsmen to Space Marines and Inquisitors, so you're able to tell the kind of stories you want. Kill Team and 40k currently are focused on Space Hulks with Arcs of Omen, and Wrath and Glory has an entire book called Redacted Records, which is focused just on that. One thing in particular I like about Wrath and Glory is the default setting is just one system. The rules give you everything you need to play anywhere in the galaxy, but many of their background books are focused on this one system, Gilead. With 6 planets, there's plenty to do, and with the Eldar, Orcs and Chaos all taking an interest in this Imperial system, cut off from the rest of the Empire, there's plenty that needs to be done. This kind of setting makes a great background to a Kill Team campaign, making those novitiates part of the Order of the Sanctified Shield. That Hunter Clade is part of the machine cults of Avrakris. Those veteran guardsmen are of the Gillian Gravediggers, and so on. Finally, we have an upcoming release from Cubicle 7. Again, this is 40k, but rather than playing the heroes like the Space Marines, this game focuses on more domestic 40k, so the everyday life of the Imperial citizen rather than on the battlefield. That doesn't mean you'll be playing a random serf, but instead competent heroes serving a important patron like an Inquisitor, a Magos and Mechanicus, or maybe even a crime boss. Imperium Maledictum will be set in the Carian sector on the far western edge of the galaxy. A previous 40k game, Dark Heresy, developed out the Calixus sector, which ended up possibly one of the most detailed sectors in the game to date. So it'll be really interesting to see how Cubicle 7 developed their own little corner of the galaxy. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games. The goal is always to try and make the best possible two-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.